The controversial issue between the small d and the uppercase D bothers me. I feel that the two separate letters makes it so the culture, the deaf culture itself, is either a small d, which they're not proud to be deaf, and the larger case letter D is that they're really proud to be deaf. I want to show you this book. It's about the deaf culture. The name of it's Deaf in America. It's a voice from the culture. Here, let me show you. Some of the questions and concepts in the book are outdated because it was published in 1972. When would you use a lowercase d? You would use an uppercase D because you're proud to be deaf. You share the same language. It's the same as any other culture. I began studying sign language in the 80s. Back then the information today is completely changed. Why has it changed? There's many reasons. Before, they were thinking of throwing out the lowercase d and just making it a smaller case d, but now they definitely want to keep it. People choose to identify themselves in many different ways. Either they have a hearing loss, or they have a hearing implant, or they classify themselves as hard of hearing. But the deaf separate themselves from those people. If you decide that you either have a hearing loss or hearing implant, that's fine. That's your decision. That's when you would use the lowercase d. That's fine if that's what you prefer. But true deaf people, they're still using the big D. They want to support the deaf community. It's important that you know the language, yes, but it's not the most important. Think of other ethnic groups out there. Think of African Americans out there. Do they use a small a for their name? Definitely not. They use the uppercase A for African. But do all of them know the language? No, of course not. They might know some of the culture norms, but they're not fluent in the language. But they still choose to classify themselves as African Americans. So the language is not the primary goal of connecting yourself with a certain culture group. So why should that be any different for the deaf community? You might not know the language, might not know all of the culture norms, but you still should classify yourself as deaf and be proud to be deaf. And of course, use the uppercase D. And that's my point of this message, is we should use the uppercase D because we're proud to be deaf. Remember that being deaf is a process. You always have to be on your feet. I think this is the main concept of the book that I just showed you. I think that whether you consider yourself hard of hearing, deaf, all of the things I mentioned, you should keep the big D and be proud. Anyone that's in the culture group should use the uppercase D. What do you guys all think?